Everyone, and welcome back to another video. I did think I was going to be filming this video a lot sooner than I'm filming it now. I am now 6 weeks postpartum, and I thought I'd be filming this video maybe the following week after I give birth, or I'd be vlogging my birth, which was my original plan, which all very quickly changed. My baby is extremely needy, wants to be held all the time. It's probably completely normal, but we'll see how far we get through this video before she starts screaming the place down. So originally my birth was meant to be in a birth centre. I wanted a very natural birth. I'd done a lot of research into like breathing techniques, natural pain relief methods, and I did say that I would take some pain relief like pethidine I didn't mind taking, or gas and air, but I wasn't going to have the epidural, not for any reason other than I wanted to feel my birth and actually go through the process of giving birth rather than just kind of sitting there and not being able to feel anything. It was just a personal preference thing, and I'd made a very detailed birth plan which I'd gone through with my midwife. She did keep saying to me, don't put all your eggs in one basket with birth, things can change very quickly, and let me tell you, my birth changed very, very quickly and went the complete opposite direction from what I thought would have and could have happened. So like I said earlier, I was planning on filming the birth, and I think I got a few clips before we left for the hospital. She's starting already. She wants me to stand up with her all the time, that's the new thing. Yeah, so as I was saying, I did get a few clips at home before we left for the hospital of me speaking about what was going on, so I will add those in, and I'll add some pictures in as well that I got along the way as I'm talking. I did film a clip just before I went for my second sweep, so I'll insert that here because it's a bit of a better explanation in real time of what I was actually going through in that moment. I have no idea when this girl is planning on arriving into the world. It is now the 25th of September and I was due on the 17th of September, so I'm now a week and a day late. And I had sweeps on Friday and she said my cervix wasn't open, so I'm going back again this morning to see if we can get labour moving. And if we can't get anything moving, then on the 29th of September, so Friday, I'll have to be induced, which I really, really don't want to do because I'm hoping on having a natural birth without epidural in the birth centre, which I think I've said in my other videos as well. And if I am induced, there's a high chance that I'll probably need an epidural because I think it's quite painful if you're medically induced. So I'm hoping that today the sweeps work and labour starts tonight. To be honest, the past 2 nights I have had some light cramping, kind of like period cramps, and I don't know if that is a sign that labour is coming. It's quite painful, but it's not like really, really painful, so I'm just going to ask the midwife today if that's a sign that she's on her way. I really, really hope it is. My sister predicted 10 days late and I was like, absolutely not, she's going to be like 1 or 2 days late. So yeah, I'm just getting a bit fed up now. I just want her to hurry up. I just got back from my sweep and my cervix is still very much closed, so I'm just feeling a little bit disheartened. She said her head is literally right there. She was like, ooh, it's so low, I can feel her head, but cervix is still closed. And I was like, is there anything that I can do to help open the cervix, because I need her to come now. And she said, really, there's not much that you can do. And I said, well, she'll come before Friday because that's when I'm going to be induced. And she was like, it's literally 50-50 if she's going to come or not. So I'm just really, really hoping that we get some movement tonight even, but definitely before Friday. I'm going to try and book a massage because the previous lady, she did say that reflexology or acupressure can help. So like I said in the clip, on the 25th of September I'd had my second sweep. From the first sweep, which I think was the Friday, so it was like 4 days before, there wasn't any kind of movement or anything, but after this sweep there was like brownish kind of bloody looking discharge when I wiped after, so I thought, oh, maybe something's happening. On the 26th of September I woke up in quite a lot of pain and I was like, these are definitely contractions now, I'm pretty certain they're contractions. But I did manage to get back to sleep, and I filmed a clip in the morning when I woke up, so I'll insert that. Quick update, it's the next day, 26th of September, it's 11:27 at the moment, and my contractions started last night quite painfully. Like I said, I had been having slight pains, but last night was really, really painful, and they were quite regular and quite painful. And then I went to bed. I managed to get about 2 hours sleep, woke up about 5 a.m. The contractions had kind of slowed down, and then I couldn't get back to sleep. I was still having them. They were still quite painful, but maybe not as painful, but they definitely slowed down. And then this morning they've completely slowed down, and they're not anywhere near as painful as they were last night. So now I'm panicking that labour's slowed down, or I don't really know. I just hope. I mean, I've been Googling it, and apparently labour can slow down and then pick up again in the evening, so I'm really hoping that that's what's going to happen. But last night my BB Hug Me pregnancy pillow literally got me through the night. I was just hugging it all night because I tried to go to bed, and the weight of my stomach when I was lying down was really hurting when the contractions were coming. But as soon as I started hugging this pillow, it was just so comforting. So I've literally, this pregnancy pillow saved me my entire pregnancy, and now is saving me through labour. I'm even taking it to the hospital with me because I need some comfort. So I've sent my boyfriend to bed now. I'm hoping he's going to get a really good sleep today, and then tonight, hopefully it's go time. Oh God, they're definitely still coming, but they're just not as regular. It's still very painful. Oh, I'm hoping tonight things speed up and she comes. On the evening of the 26th of September, things really did start to ramp up then, and I filmed this clip not long before we left for the hospital. Okay guys, quick update just while I have a tiny little bit of strength in me to film this. So it is now 11 o'clock on the 26th of September. So it's been about 24 hours. Oh, there's another contraction coming. I'm just timing my contractions. Okay, so basically my contractions all day have been pretty irregular. They ranged from being painful to not that painful, to every 20 minutes to every 5 minutes. They were just completely irregular. And then we went on a walk to see if that helped to kind of speed things along. And then I came back and I had a bath, a warm bath. And I felt so much better when I got out of the bath. But then I just lay down on the sofa and I thought, let me see if I can get any sleep. So I put some relaxing music on and tried to see if I could get any sleep. And then I just felt the contractions really start to kind of ramp up, and it felt like they were a bit more consistent. So I got my contraction timer out and I started timing them, and they were about 6 minutes apart and lasting about 50 seconds. And the app said, get ready to go to the hospital, try and have a light bite to eat. So we ordered some Turkish food. I've tried to eat a little bit, but I do feel like I feel a little bit sick. I feel like I'm gonna probably vomit it all up, so I don't know if it was the best thing to do. I'm now timing my contractions again because my midwife said to go to the hospital when contractions are every 5 minutes, lasting 1 minute. But I feel like it's kind of close enough to that. And then I'm going to call the hospital and see if I can go to my birth centre or if I'm going to have to go to the hospital. And then my sister's driving all the way from Bedford, bless her, to be there. So fingers crossed. I think she's coming tonight. I think she is coming tonight. Please say she's coming tonight. Literally been like 24 hours of contractions and pain. But I'm actually really, really proud of myself because I thought, obviously I'm still at the beginning stages, so I'm fully aware that it's going to get a lot worse, but I'm actually proud of myself that I've managed to kind of breathe through every contraction for the past 24 hours. I'm just hoping that I also boss the active labour part and that when I get to the hospital they don't tell me that I'm not dilated enough and I have to come back home, because I've really tried to hold out till the last minute, because I know I've watched a lot of vlogs where people go down to the hospital and they say you're not dilated, you need to go home and come back. So I'm really hoping that's not me, because so far my waters haven't broken yet and I don't think I've had a bloody show. They say they're the two things that should happen or could happen. So my midwife had told me that I need to call through to the birth centre when my contractions were 3 minutes apart and 1 minute long, but I actually called early because I'd called earlier in the day just to say my contractions have started and I just want you to be prepared that I'm going to be coming to the birth centre, and just kind of ask them, is someone actually going to be there? And it took me 30 minutes to get through to anyone. Every time I called the number it was engaged, and then when I finally got through I'd been redirected to Barnet Hospital. They said, oh, no one's at the birth centre but there might be someone there in the evening. So from that point I was starting to panic a little bit, and I was thinking, is someone actually going to be at the birth centre when I go into full-on labour? So once my contractions started to get a little bit stronger and a little bit closer together, I thought, let me call them a little bit in advance and just say my contractions are a little bit closer together, is anyone going to be there basically? And again I was transferred through to the hospital and they said no one's going to be at the birth centre. So I was very, very disheartened by this point. I knew that my dreams of being in the birth centre had gone to crap, but I thought, let's just be positive and hopefully I can still have the type of birth that I want to have. Sorry, I knew this was going to be difficult to get through this video with her. She's going to start screaming. Okay, so after I filmed the clip that I just showed, I threw up all my Turkish food which we'd ordered. Contractions had got closer together but not quite close enough to go to the hospital. But the contraction timer app said, get ready to go to the hospital, have a shower and something to eat. So that's why I called the hospital. Okay, we're going to have a meltdown I think here. We may not get this filmed. Hey, let me film my video. And as I was throwing up, gosh, we're going to have to stop and start here. So as I was throwing up, my mucus plug came out. And I do have a very gory, nasty picture of it, which I will insert. So look away now, you don't need to see that. But I took a picture so that I could show the midwife when we got to the hospital. Oh, come on. Okay, so the mucus plug experience was quite hilarious because obviously I knew your waters break and I had heard of the mucus plug, but people always talk about your waters breaking, but actually I think the mucus plug is way more traumatic, or I found it way more traumatic. Not traumatic, but disgusting. Hey! What? I have a very dramatic baby. Very dramatic. Hey! Hey! She wants me to stand up. She wants me to stand up. So I may have to stand up and film this video. Might be the only way that I get it done. Hey. She only ate an hour and a half ago, but we're going to breastfeed because it's the only way we're going to get this filmed. This is the only way we're going to get the... I can't even speak now. This is the only way we're going to get the video filmed. Right, so where I was up to. So the mucus plug came out. That was quite a hilarious experience because I just vomited. It came out on my foot and I was running around the house saying to my boyfriend, don't look, it's disgusting. I feel like I didn't know what a mucus plug would look like and quite how disgusting it is. So after that, I then put my always incontinence pants on because I thought if my mucus plug has come out, it's likely that my waters are going to break soon. And thankfully I put those on because we got everything together, got ready to go down to the hospital, and in the car park of the hospital, my waters then broke. We got to the hospital, we're sitting in the waiting room of the hospital. There's lots of other women coming in, absolute agony with their contractions, screaming the place down. And my partner's kind of like, you need to really start to show the pain, because I was kind of sitting in the corner just breathing through my contractions as best I could basically. And I said it doesn't really work like that, you have to be like a certain amount of centimetres dilated before they're gonna admit you into the hospital. But I did a urine sample and they took my blood pressure and I had protein in my urine and my blood pressure was high. So they were like, we can't let you go home. So I thought I was just going to come to the hospital, they're going to check on the baby, they're going to tell me everything's fine and I can go home. I feel like I made probably a big mistake going down to the hospital, because I don't know if my waters would have broke if I'd have gone to the hospital, because maybe the impact of vomiting and then being in the car may have kind of spurred them on to break. So not a regret, but looking back on it, I feel like maybe I shouldn't have gone to the hospital so early. I should have waited until my contractions were really, really close. Anyway, they said, you can't go home, you need to stay here. So the reason that they said I needed to stay in the hospital was because they said I could possibly have preeclampsia because of the protein in my urine and the high blood pressure, which is quite a serious thing, and I think can affect the baby. I said to them, I don't think it's preeclampsia, you know, I've done a lot of research into this and I know you get preeclampsia from having a bad diet. I have a very healthy diet, I really don't think I've got this. I've not had high blood pressure my entire pregnancy, I've not had any complications or anything like that. And they said you can develop it during labour. So obviously they're the experts and I just trusted them and said, you know, I'm gonna have to stay here in the hospital, which I wasn't very happy about, but you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. So I was then put in a very small room on a shared ward with a birth ball, and we did get a reclining chair that my partner could sit/sleep on. Quite comfortable bed, I suppose, but not much space in there. In the birth centre, it would have been a very basic bed that I had, but it would have been a nice big space that you can move around, do your exercises on your birth ball. It would have been dim lights with a diffuser, your own music. It would have been a very zen experience, whereas on the ward at the hospital from the start it just wasn't a very zen experience. So my mindset kind of went quite negative from there, and I felt like I was so exhausted by this time. It was just really difficult to keep my mind positive. So the contractions were really quite painful, and like I said, I was quite tired and I was just finding it quite difficult to get any sleep. So I put my TENS machine on, which really helped me. It was like a massive relief. I can't believe how well those things work, honestly. It was amazing. I managed to get to sleep. So I woke up at 9 AM in the morning and it felt like my contractions had completely stopped, or at least slowed down, and were not anywhere near as painful, which was very disheartening because obviously I knew I needed my contractions to be strong and regular for labour to start moving ahead, and it just felt like I'd taken 10 steps back after breathing through contractions for about 24 hours pretty much, and just being in pain. It felt like, okay, do I need to go through all of this again to get back to where I was? So then around 12 AM the doctor came round to see me and he said, you've got preeclampsia. And I kind of not argued with him, but I said, are you sure I've got preeclampsia? Because I just really feel like I don't have that. Again, I lead a healthy lifestyle. And he said, you can get preeclampsia. It's not from a healthy lifestyle, it's from the placenta not functioning correctly. So anyone can get it and you can develop it during labour. So I kind of said, okay, I take your word for it, I must have it, I'm gonna have to stay. He also said, because my waters had broken, you only have 24 hours from when your waters break until they need to induce you, because there's a very high risk of infection once your waters are broken. He then explained, I think it was 7 PM that evening, I could wait until before I was induced, or I could just be induced now and speed the process along. I said, I really want to have as natural a birth as I possibly can have, so I'd like to wait until 7 PM before I'm induced and hope that I go into labour naturally. But then after a couple of hours of being on the ward, I then called the midwife and said, I think I'm just going to go ahead with the induction because my contractions aren't getting any stronger, they're not getting any closer together, I'm completely exhausted, I haven't slept in pretty much 48 hours. I've had kind of an hour here and an hour there, but I've not had like a really deep sleep. And I was really worried that, what was I saying? Oh my God, being a mum, it's like always doing two things at once. Okay, so yeah, so after a couple of hours, I called the midwife and said, I just want to be induced now because I'm just so worried that last night I got too exhausted and fell asleep and the contractions stopped. I don't want the same thing to happen today. I want all the energy that I can possibly get, so when I'm induced, hopefully I won't have to have the epidural. They said to me, when you're induced, it's likely that you'll have to have an epidural because the pain is a lot more intense when you're medically induced rather than going into natural labour. So again, my mindset was, I was just feeling disheartened more and more as the time went on, because I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to have this natural birth that I'd hoped. I'm probably going to end up having to have the epidural. So around 5 p.m, I had the pessary inserted, which is supposed to soften the cervix and open it up before you have the hormone drip. This child, honestly, she's drank too much milk. She drinks too much milk and then she cries that she's too full up. Oh my God, child. Oh my goodness. So much milk. Oh my goodness. I don't know, everywhere says that they stop eating once they're full up, but she just seems to continue to keep eating. And you're whingy. You're whingy, aren't you? Right, where was I up to? I'm trying to speed through this video as quickly as possible. So around 5 p.m, I had the pessary inserted, which is kind of like a tampon looking thing that they put inside you, and that was extremely uncomfortable because I had a trainee midwife put mine in and it was not nice having it put in. I was supposed to have that in for 6 hours and then I would be medically induced on the drip with the hormones. I thought, okay, we're going to wait 6 hours and then we'll go down to the labour ward. But in that time I went to the toilet and my waters were like a yellowy colour, and that was different from what I'd been having previously. It was just kind of clear. So what I didn't know as well, and some people might not know, is when your waters break, you continue to get waters. It doesn't just break and then that's it. It continues on. So I said to the midwife, just been to the toilet, my waters are a little bit yellowy colour. Is there anything to worry about? She said, oh no, that's fine. Unless it's like a brown colour, it should be fine. I was like, okay. So carried on waiting, and then the midwives changed over, and when we got the new midwife, she said, oh, your water's still clear. And I said, I did say to the midwife that was on shift earlier that they were slightly yellow, and she said there was nothing to worry about. She said, can I just have a look and check? So I showed her and she said, oh, let me get my manager or more senior midwife to have a look. She came and had a look, and she said, oh, the baby's definitely done a poo. And I was like, oh God, can this literally get any worse at this point? There's nothing else that can go wrong. And she was like, we can't wait around any longer. We need to induce you. We need to go down to the labour ward as soon as possible. So the doctor earlier that day said, I know you had your heart set on a natural birth with like a birthing pool and everything. There is a big room with a birthing pool that you can go to. And I said, please, please, if anything, just get me that room. Just hold me that room. Please, can I go to that room? So when the midwife said this, I said, the doctor said earlier, there's a room with a birthing pool. Please, can I have that room? Please, please, please. She said, yes, that's fine. It's empty at the moment. We'll get you that room. So everything moves quite quickly at that point. I call my sister and say, you need to get here as quick as possible because they're now going to medically induce me, and I think at this point I'm going to probably have to have the epidural as well. So we're heading down to the labour ward and we go in the room with the pool, the nice room that's supposed to be like basically the vibe of the birth centre but at the hospital, and someone's already in there. So we go to this other room, which is like a massive room, very cold. I've got a picture actually. When we first got there, I was smiling and trying to be positive, but I was kind of thinking, at least this baby's going to be here soon. So I kind of had that in my mind. And my sister was on her way and she was saying, you know, don't have the epidural. You can be induced and still feel the pain or feel the experience of a natural birth. So then my mind had switched back again and I was like, I'm not going to have the epidural. The midwife comes into the room, and quite honestly, she was probably the coldest midwife that I'd experienced the entire time. And I was like, for all the times in this process to get a really cold midwife, it's not when you're in labour, is it? I could have had a really shitty midwife while I was on the ward, but now is not the time that you want a really cold, shitty midwife. So yeah, she was not good vibes. She chucked a pair of compression socks at my boyfriend and basically said, put those on her. And we were just looking at each other like, oh my God, is this what we're going to have to deal with the entire time? And she said to me, so you're having the epidural? And I said, no, I'm going to try without the epidural first, see how I get along. And then if it's really, really bad, then I'll have the epidural. And she said, no, you can't do that because if the anaesthetist is busy, when you decide that you just want the epidural, he might be in an emergency C-section and he can't just leave there to come and give you the epidural. And I was like, oh my God, like, is that how it is? And I was thinking, what if I'm in severe pain and then I can't get the epidural? Like, what am I going to do? So I said, okay, I'm going to have the epidural then. But then my sister arrived and she was like, she said to the midwife, this is not the case. If she wants the epidural any time throughout her labour, if she has to wait a little while, she has to wait, but someone should come to put it in. And she was like, okay, well, we can do that or whatever, but, you know, don't say I didn't tell you, kind of thing. So we were just like, oh my God. Even then my sister was like, she's extremely cold, and the room was also freezing, so I was like shivering head to toe as well. And I said, can we close the window, because I saw that a window was open, and my sister closed the window, but we realised after the birth that she actually had a window open above at the top as well. So even though I was saying I was freezing, she didn't go and close that window. She was just kind of making sure that she was comfortable, basically. And she didn't really interact with me at all. She just sat on this computer on the side, just typing away. So as I was on the drip, vibe was still like very negative. The room was just massive, silent, and yeah, just quite negative. So my sister was like, right, you've got your playlist, let's get your playlist on. She started playing that. She said to the lady, can she get up? Can you find a birth ball somewhere so she can move around? And she was saying, well, you know, she can't move around too much because we need to monitor the baby's heart rate. And my sister was like, she's given birth 3 times. She knows the kind of process. And she was like, surely she can be on the birth ball just kind of around the bed. And she said, okay. She kind of huff and puffed and then went and got a birth ball and came back. So I managed to get to sit on that. I was breathing through my contractions. I actually thought I was doing really, really well at breathing through all my contractions at that point, but it just still was not the most positive vibe. My sister did really, really well at changing my mindset from being very negative, and it made me realise how much the people that are there really affect your mindset, because every time I was having a contraction, you know, she was kind of hugging me, holding me, you know, saying everything's going to be okay. She had my music on, I had my lip balm, I had my snacks. She was saying, do you need any snacks? She was giving me water. You know, all those things just made such a big difference. It felt like those are the things that the midwife should have also been doing, because, you know, she's been in so many births. She should know what to say and what to do. But it just felt like she just wanted to give me the epidural, have me sit there peacefully, and she didn't really have to do much apart from type away on her computer. So then a lot of time had passed. I'm not sure exactly how long had passed at this point, but obviously she was increasing the hormone level gradually, and as she's increasing the hormones in the drip, it's getting gradually more and more painful. And then the midwife just suddenly stands up and she's like, Molly, I don't know why you're doing this to yourself. We've got all the pain relief here for you. Why don't you just take it? And I was like, wow, like my mindset literally switched from I'm doing so well, I'm in a lot of pain, but I'm breathing through this, to looking over at my sister and saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting the epidural. So I said to her, okay, let me just get the epidural. So she calls the anaesthetist to come and give me the epidural. He comes in, he starts the whole process going, and then there is an emergency C-section. So he's like, I'm gonna have to go, the emergency C-section, and I'm gonna have to come back. Once he leaves the room, she turns around to me and goes, see, I told you, this is what was gonna happen. That's why you should get it from the beginning. And I was just like, you know, you just felt so upset, but again, trying to keep my mindset positive, because I'm thinking if I start going to a negative place, then I'm not going to get through this at all. So the anaesthetist goes off to the emergency C-section, and I say to her, can I have the pethidine to get through the pain while he's off doing the emergency C-section? And I don't know how accurate this part of the story is, but I remember looking at the level of the hormones that were in the drip, and it was on 12. And then when I looked back over at the hormone level on the drip, it was at 24, and it felt like that was quite a short period of time. So in my head, it felt like she had just really ramped up the hormone levels in the drip, basically so I was in more pain, so that I would just have the epidural and basically just shut the hell up and sit there. And I don't know how accurate that is, but when I go for my 8-week checkup, I am going to ask for my notes, because I'd like to know how quickly that hormone amount was increased. I just think that would be really interesting to know, because obviously you're in such a blurry place at the time, you don't really know what's going on. So I am going to ask for that. and find out if that's factual or not. So after that, I had the pethidine, which, wow, that was the best bit of the entire birth. Like, that was crazy. Like, I can only think that's why people are addicted to heroin, because it was insane. I was on the end of the bed going, this is amazing, this is brilliant. Like, I could feel everything, but it was not painful. Like, it was such a weird experience. It was like I could still feel, but I was like in the clouds, like, just, yeah. And I was just sitting on the end of the bed going, this is amazing, this is fabulous, this is the best thing I've ever experienced. It was just hilarious. I'm not sure how long the pethidine lasts for. It felt like a very short period of time, but maybe I'd say it was like an hour, and then it started to wear off a little bit, and I could really feel that I was in a lot of pain. So as it was just wearing off and I was really, like, this at this point was in agony, the anaesthetist came back literally just on time. I remember turning to him and saying, you were literally right bang on time, because this was starting to get unbearable. So he puts the epidural in my back, and so when I'm on the pethidine, I'm still high completely on the pethidine. He's kind of going through the waiver form. This can happen, that can happen, basically signing your life away. And I'm just going to him, this pethidine is amazing. Like, you don't know how good this pethidine is. And he's just kind of looking at me, and I'm looking at him going, just do it, yeah, just do it, do whatever you need to do. And then I'm like signing my life away at this point. It's honestly just insane experience. So then he inserts the epidural in my back, and I thought the epidural was like a big needle thing from what I had read, but it was like a tiny drip basically that he put in my back. And then from then it was like I couldn't feel anything. Completely surreal experience. Very glad that I'd experienced the pain before to understand fully how insane having an epidural is, that you're just sitting there having contractions, chatting away, feeling nothing. Like, pretty much all I could feel was like pain in my lower back, but apart from that I can hardly feel a thing. So I'd gone from being in absolute agony to hardly feeling anything at all, which was just insane. I was like chatting away with my sister, and I think she actually got a picture which I'll insert of after the epidural was put in and I'd kind of been relieved from the pain. I instantly fell asleep sitting up. So after 6 hours of being on the drip, they'd done an internal exam once, and I was only 2 centimetres dilated, and obviously that's not very far along at all. And then the second internal examination they did, they said you might be close to 3, but there's not been really much development at all since the last internal exam, and I'd been on the drip now for 6 hours. So then a bunch of doctors came in the room and said basically they would advise that I now have a C-section, which was totally mind-blowing, because I was like, this has gone so far from the birth that I wanted to have. This is like, I didn't even put C-section on my list of things to expect. The most I thought that was going to happen was I'd be induced, and I could be induced without the epidural. That was like the furthest that I was willing to go. But they were now basically saying to me, you've been having really strong contractions for 6 hours. Your cervix hasn't opened very much. There's not much progress. I think you need to get to like 8 centimetres dilated to actually be in active labour. And I was only coming towards 3 at the most. And they were saying it's your choice, you know, you can carry on as you are, but obviously it's going to cause distress to the baby eventually. And I was like, that's not a choice, I'm going to have the C-section. And then they were going through kind of the risks of C-section, this can happen, organ dysfunction, blah blah, and possible death. And I was like, oh my god, this is insane. But I was just still at this point, after God, how many hours, we're now been having contractions and going through all this since the evening of the 25th, and we're now evening 27th. So I've now been going through all this process 48 hours at least. Then my boyfriend kind of stands up and says, no, hold on, wait a minute, like, you don't need to leave the room, I need to speak to her, kind of thing. I could tell he was upset, and that's when I just kind of broke down, and it was like everything that had been happening just kind of broke down, because I could see he was upset, and I was like, I'm holding this together for everyone. And once he got upset, I just broke down into tears then, and everyone was in the room and they were just kind of looking at me, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I just need to cry right now because I literally cannot take any more bad news. So they all left the room. The horrible midwife had changed to a nice midwife and like a student midwife who was very nice. I wouldn't say they were excellent. Actually, the student midwife was much nicer and more chatty and involved than anything. I just kind of got the vibe that they're very short-staffed and it's a case of just getting people in and out with the least noise and effort as possible. That was the personal vibe that I got from the whole situation. But anyway, they said, is it okay if we stay in the room? My boyfriend was like, no, it's not. Like, you need to get out. So that was quite an awkward situation as well, because he was quite blunt, I'd say. And I said to him, like, you know, you don't need to be rude to people, like they're trying to do their best. And he was like, this is just insane. What we've gone through is just insane. And I was just in floods of tears, you know, and I was saying, we don't have a choice. We need to get this baby out of me. She's not, there's no signs of her even moving towards coming out, and she needs to come out one way or another. There's no point in carrying on like this, and she gets distressed, and then we end up with a baby that's distressed. And he had to think about it for a second, because that was the only time we had. And I said, we literally don't have a choice, we need to go ahead with this. So the doctors came back in, I said, I'm going to go ahead with it. I signed the waiver form, and literally as soon as my hand hit the page, I was being wheeled off down to the thing. And I said, oh, my sister in the room, like, because my boyfriend was worried that he didn't really want to see the whole process. He was worried, you know, what he's going to see in that room, basically. So I said, well, don't worry about it, I'll have my sister in there. I was calling my sister. She was like, I'm 10 minutes away. It all happened so quick. Literally, as soon as I signed the piece of paper, they were getting me ready to go down to the operating theatre. And even when I got into the operating theatre, it was like there was all these people rushing around. They lie you down on the bed. You can just feel everything being pulled around. They put these things on your legs, I'm guessing like compression pads. They put the screen up so that you can't see from behind. I had my boyfriend sitting behind my head talking to me, and this really nice lady came and spoke to me in my ear, and she was kind of saying like, what do you do for a living? And like, I can't even remember what she was saying, but basically things that were not related to the surgery. And then my partner goes like, can you feel anything? And I was like, please, whatever you do not talk about what is happening right now. I need to just think about something else completely. But anyway, once the C-section started, it felt like about 2 minutes and the baby was out. And before I'd gone in, I said to them, if anything, I want my boyfriend to go with the baby as soon as she comes out. They get the baby out and they say, she's quite sleepy, we just need to check her. And they take her in the other room. And I'm just like so focused on getting through this. I heard what they said, but I didn't really process what they said. But my boyfriend was like panicking. We've gone through all this and it just can't be any worse, basically. A minute later, they came in and said to him, you can come in. So he went in, and yeah, he comes running back in about 2 minutes later. She said, she's fine, she's fine. She's so beautiful. Oh my God, you can't believe how beautiful she is. And all this. And I was like, oh my God, like, I can't wait to see her. And then he got to cut the cord, which we've got a video of, and that was really nice for him. And then they brought her back in, and while they were basically fixing me back together, which is actually the long part of the surgery, so actually getting the baby out was very quick. And then I think they had to basically put all your organs back together and stitch you up. But the whole thing went so quickly. But they put her down next to me. They got these really lovely pictures of us all together. So my beautiful baby girl, who is now here and safe and very healthy, thank God, through all that, was born on the 28th of September at 4:15, and she was 7 pounds 15 ounces. So very healthy baby in the end. And I just feel like that's probably the most important thing, was just that she was healthy. And that's what I kept telling myself, you know, the experience that I went through, it wasn't what I wanted, what I expected. It was quite traumatic, but at least she is healthy. You know, some people might go through all that and not have a healthy baby. But obviously having the C-section, you need to stay in hospital a little bit longer than if you don't have a C-section. And my tummy was still very big. I don't know how it is if you have a vaginal birth. I'm guessing your stomach goes down quicker. I think there's probably a bit of a delay in your stomach going down because your body probably doesn't know that you've actually given birth. That's what it felt like to me. And my stomach was very sore, and obviously I had the wound, so I found it very, very difficult to breastfeed. I was breastfeeding her from the side, but it was quite painful. When we were in the hospital, I literally couldn't get up in and out of the bed by myself. I was relying on my partner for a lot, and obviously I was trying to tell him to go home and get some rest as well, because this was our 3rd night in the hospital and he'd been sleeping in this chair every day, so I wanted him to go home and get rest. But then when he was going home, I couldn't get anything for myself, you know. I was just in this room by myself, this little cubicle. When he was coming back, I was trying to get in the shower. I didn't want to look at my body. I think it was the next morning, I dropped a towel on the floor getting in the shower, because it was so hard to like get in and out of the shower, even get my clothes off. And I dropped the towel on the floor and I came back just in floods of tears. And I was like, babe, you know, I can't even shower myself. I've dropped a towel on the floor and I can't pick it up. I'm just in so much pain, I feel so fragile. Obviously I had a catheter in as well, which is a very strange experience. Not knowing kind of when you're weeing and stuff. When they came around, I think it was the next morning, and they take the catheter out and they say to you, you need to try and wee within the next, I think, few hours, or at least 24 hours, and you need to wee in a pot, and we need to see how much wee you've done. You need to reach like a certain level of wee, otherwise we're gonna have to put the catheter back in. And I was like, God, I really don't want the catheter back in. So I went to the toilet to wee and managed to wee literally just to the point, because before that point, oh no, so I think they said you had to wee within 24 hours, that was it. They went away, I didn't wee because I was too scared to be honest. It was like my brain hadn't been thinking about weeing. So when they took the catheter out, my brain still couldn't think about weeing, if that makes sense. So I didn't feel like I needed a wee. But she came back round and she said, you really have to wee, and you have to wee this much up to this certain point, otherwise we are going to have to put the catheter back in. And I was like, God, I really don't want that catheter back in. So I went to the toilet and just sat there, and then it was actually not as horrible to wee as I thought it was going to be, and I managed to just wee to the point that they said I needed to wee to. And then she said, you also need to try and pass a stool. And I was like, mate, I feel like it felt like my organs were not in the correct position to be able to do that, and it was just quite frightening. I thought, this is going to be really, really painful, and I just kind of kept putting it off. So I stayed in the hospital 2 nights after the C-section, which I think is the minimum that you can stay in the hospital after C-section. Sometimes you have to stay longer. But they did blood tests on me in the morning, and then the doctor had said, oh, you're going to be able to go home at lunchtime, 30th of September, so 2 days after the birth. And I was like, okay. I called my boyfriend. I was like, you need to be here 12 o'clock on the dot. I need to get the hell out of here. Like, I'm not doing well in this place. I was happy, I wasn't sad, but I was crying a lot. I think probably now looking back on it, it's because of the hormones. I could hear other people going through a similar experience as me, you know, their partners getting angry with the midwives and saying, we don't know what's happening, we were supposed to go to the birth centre. I could hear people going through the same experience as me, and it just felt like I just needed to get out of here basically. But the doctor came back round and basically said, your liver is failing, we need you to stay here another night. And I was like, my liver is not failing, like I'm so sure of it, I feel fine, like I need to go home. And I said, can I discharge myself? And she said, I wouldn't advise it, but you can if you want. So I said, I am then. I need to go home. I need to be in my own bed. And she said, okay, you can go home, but you need to come back tomorrow and have more blood tests to check if your liver's okay. So 5:30 on the 30th of September, so it's coming up to evening time. And we're packing everything up to leave, to go home, get in the car. My stomach just felt like everything had been moved around in there. Going home in the car, every speed bump I could feel, it felt like my stomach, everything inside was jiggling around. Like it was very painful. I couldn't stand up, sit down, nothing, and this was 2 days on. My boyfriend was driving so slowly, and even then every pothole in the road I could feel in my stomach, and like cars were beeping at him and stuff. But we got home and I felt so much better, and as soon as I got in I went to the toilet. I think just the relief of being home, being in my own comfort, having my own things around me. And I was so happy, and I came back in and I said, babe, I've gone to the toilet after how many days? I don't even know, probably 4 days not going to the toilet. I've never been so happy to go to the toilet in my life. And then from there, just being home, I feel like things just progressively got more positive. They said to me, you know, don't clean the house, just carry your baby, don't do anything. But if I'm honest, I was up and about cleaning and whatnot because my bum was sore from sitting on that bloody bed for so long. I just needed to be, you know, in my own home and doing my own thing. So yeah, that's my birth story. Things very much took a turn. I won't say for the worst, for different. I think it's good to make this video just so people realise that if you go into, which people did tell me as well but I didn't listen, you know, go into it with a real open mind that things could go very, very differently from what you expected, and no matter how much you plan how you want your birth to be, it could be completely different. I did everything. I drank the raspberry leaf tea every day. I ate the 6 dates every day. I used the exercise ball. Everything you could possibly do to have the most natural birth experience or pleasant birth experience possible, I did it, and things didn't go to plan. So yeah, things could just not go to plan. And since then I have just been racking my brains, what could I have done differently, what would I do differently next time so that this doesn't happen again. But I think I would have to go into it, even if there are things I would do differently, knowing that again things could still not go to plan. It's not in your hands what actually happens. So I'm going to end the video here. Hopefully someone can take something from my experience. You know, I really enjoyed watching these videos when I was pregnant. Mostly I watched the positive ones, so maybe this is a bit of a negative one, but it's my true story and I just wanted to share it for other people's benefit, but also so that I can document and remember myself what actually happened.